Hello everyone, welcome to English Tutorials by Poonam Thakur. In this video, I will be discussing poem Keeping Quiet by Pablo Neruda from class 12th English textbook Flamingo. Poetic devices play a very important role in any poem. In this poem also, we have quite a number of poetic devices, which I have highlighted in different colors and I will be explaining them one by one after the recitation of the poem. Let's get started. Keeping Quiet by Pablo Neruda. Now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment. Without rush, without engines, we would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. If we were not so single minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead, the later proves to be alive. Now I will count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go. Let's discuss the poetic devices used in the poem now. The poet has used symbols and comparisons to explain how we can end conflicts, wars, and destructive activities that are leading to the death of our civilization. He advocates keeping quiet and still for a while to introspect and understand ourselves and our relationship with our brothers and nature to build a peaceful and harmonious world around. In the very first line of the poem, we have repetition and alliteration. Let's focus on the repetition first. Repetition is a poetic device that repeats the same words or phrases a few times to make an idea clearer and more memorable. So, the very first line, now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still, is an example of repetition. Wars with gas, wars with fire is another example of repetition in the poem. Poet has used alliteration at many places to create rhythm in the poem. What is alliteration? Alliteration is the occurrence of same letter or sound at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words. Alliteration typically uses consonant sounds at the beginning of a word to give stress to its syllable. For example, we will, wars with, we were, W sound is repeated. Sudden strangeness, here S sound is repeated. His hurt hands, as we know, H sound is repeated. So single, S sound is repeated, and in clean clothes, consonant sound C is quite clear. Anaphora is a rhetorical device that features repetition of word or phrase at the beginning of successive sentences, phrases, or clauses. It works as a literary device and it allows writers to convey, emphasize, and reinforce meaning. Let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for 1 second. Repetition of word lets create a bond with the reader and it also stress poet's point. In the poem, the word arms has two meanings, hands and weapons. It is an example of pun. The words that sound similar but have different meanings. So the poet wants us to be still, to introspect and not to move our hands. And also, he urges us not to fight or use any weapons against each other. Next, we have metaphor. And what is metaphor? It is a figure of speech that describes an object or action in a way that isn't literally true, what helps explain an idea or make a comparison. For example, put on clean clothes. The poet says that quiet introspection will make us comprehend the destructive nature of wars. Man would shed his blood-soiled clothes and don on clean clothes. That is, he would cleanse his soul, heart, and mind, purging it of all anger and hatred. Next, in the shade, just as shade protects us from the harsh sun, we will protect and shelter each other as brothers, thus live in peace and harmony. Now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. Poet has used antithesis over here. And what is antithesis? It literally means opposite. It is a rhetorical device in which two opposite ideas are put together in a sentence to achieve a contrasting effect. In the very first line of the poem, the poet is asking his readers to count to 12, and at the same time, he's urging them to keep still. So, count and still, two opposite ideas put together to achieve a contrasting effect. Towards the end, poet again uses antithesis in line when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. So, dead and alive, two opposite words used together in a sentence to achieve a contrasting effect. Perhaps the earth can teach us when everything is personification. Earth is personified as a teacher. When the earth appears to be dead, it is actually dormant and carefully preserving the seeds of life. Human beings too need to keep still and quiet to reawaken the life forces to be productive. Now we have symbolism. Symbolism is the use of symbols to signify ideas and qualities by giving them symbolic meanings that are different from their literal sense. Symbolism can take different forms. Generally, it is an object representing another to give an entirely different meaning that is much deeper and more significant. And keeping quiet is abundant in symbolism. Count to 12 symbolizes a measure of time. The clock has 12 markings on it, the year has 12 months, and the day has 12 hours. Brothers is a symbol of mankind, unity, universal brotherhood, and solidarity. Fisherman and whale stands for the oppressor and the oppressed respectively. Clean clothes symbolize peace and change in one's perspective. Fishermen in the cold sea, hurt hands is a symbolic image showing how man is ruthlessly destroying nature and harming other species in cold blood for his selfish need and greed. The hurt hands, the sore hands of the salt gatherer would make him realize how he is harming himself by his mindless, cohesive activities. Victory with no survivors is a paradox, which is a self contradictory statement. Victory is meant for the celebrations and happiness for the people. If no survivor is left to enjoy the happiness of victory, that victory is of no use altogether. Poet has used euphemism in line, no truck with death. And what is euphemism? A mild or indirect word or expression substituted for one considered to be too harsh or blunt when referring to something unpleasant or embarrassing. The poet makes it clear that what he's advocating shouldn't be confused with total inactivity, for total inactivity means death, and he has nothing to do with death. In his own words, I have no truck with death. Next, we have transferred epithet. And what is transferred epithet? It is an adjective usually used to describe one thing and is transferred to another. An epithet is a word or phrase which describes the main quality of someone or something. Cold sea is transferred epithet. It's not the sea, but the fisherman is cold. He does not feel sad or bad about killing whales. It is metaphor also. Metaphorically, cold sea signifies the coldness or indifferent attitude of the fisherman who hardly bothers killing whales. Dear students, I hope you have understood the poem thoroughly and your doubts are clear now. In case of any doubts, please feel free to drop a comment and I will get back to you. Thank you so much for watching right till the end. Don't forget to press the subscribe button and the bell icon next to it. See you soon. Happy watching English Tutorials by Poonam Thakur.